Going live.
Hi everyone, just give me one more second. We had a bit of a problem switching things over. As you can see, I am live streaming from our lovely living room today. Really nice day, and I wanted to be out here. Let's see here. And as always, I'm joined by Deandra Pop.
That's me. I'm Deandra.
Deandra, you got to send me the event page link again.
Okay.
Oh, you know what? Never mind, I got it. All right. And today I'm going to be looking at, unfortunately, this was the other reason why I am late today. My Cintiq won't work on my laptop. And it's one of those things that you find out 5 minutes before the stream starts and you kind of freak out. But I'm going to be working on just my normal Wacom tablet. But for something like this where it's very sketch-oriented, I like to work on my Cintiq just because I like having that control and that precision. But that's not to say that you can't get it with a normal tablet. I just think I'm more comfortable with it. I'm almost done posting it out everywhere. Okay, there we go. I'm ready. D, you ready?
Yeah.
Hi. Hi everyone. I'm Tim Von Rieden with ConceptCookie.com, and I'm joined with Deandra Pop, and we're doing our weekly Wednesday live stream. And today I'm going to be doing a no opacity transfer. So what that means is I'm going to be working with my brush settings without any transfer on. So basically, I'm going to be working with my strokes on my canvas, and I'm going to be using only my brush and my eraser to pretty much complete a profile. And like I said, it would have been easier with a Cintiq, but that is kind of personal preference. So I'm going to be working on my normal Wacom, and I'm going to show you step by step on how I do this. And later, I'm just going to do a quick review with you guys on what the workshop is going to do and how it's going to affect Concept Cookie over the next 5 weeks, because the workshop starts on Sunday. And I want to thank everyone that participated. I didn't expect it to sell out in a week, so thank you guys. And with that, why don't we go ahead and get started. And as always, if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them, even if it doesn't relate to what I'm working on. It could be about concept art in general, how to find a job, anything that you feel you have a question of. So I'm going to go ahead, screen share what I got. So this was pretty much just a quick thing I did before the stream started. And it's showing the quick process between the finished version of my little sketch and the initial kind of shape out. And pretty much I want you guys to know that this only took like 5 to 10 minutes. And that's how long it should be taking you guys if you do this right. Because the whole point of having your transfer turned off is that you have to be very confident with your brush strokes. So let's see here. Can you see that all right? Ooh, hold on, my image size is 40 inches wide.
Hey Tim, you're echoing.
Echoing?
Yes.
Oh, it's because Deandra's computer picks me up. She is in the other room. I'll try to not yell so loud. Okay, so while that's resizing my image, I think that's why my Mac is chugging right now. I didn't realize it was 40 by 40. But when you go into this, so let's see here. I'm going to choose one of my characters that I always draw. So before I even start doing profile sketches or even warm-ups, I like to have some kind of a reference. Now normally I have like a few PSDs saved on my desktop of like just pure reference, and that could be collected from Pinterest, DeviantArt, whatever, Tumblr. And I just put them in a single canvas by itself, and then I'll reference them whenever I'm doing something similar to that. Let's see, who do I want to start off with? You know what, I'm going to start off with Crystal. So pretty much, I've drawn this character so many times, I have an idea of what she looks like, the different features she has, and what makes her distinguishable whenever a viewer looks at this picture. So I'm going to go ahead, get my brush here, make a new layer. And I know you guys can't see my brush settings, but I'm going into the brush menu that you can do from the window on the top tab. Don't check transfer, but I can keep my shape dynamics turned on with the minimum diameter set low. So pretty much what that looks like if I just do it by itself is like this. So the harder I push down, I'll get that more solid block, and then the lighter I go, it'll be just a thinner mark. So no opacity, no transfer. I'm going to do the same with my eraser really quick as well. Okay. So now as I start off, what I like to do when doing profile sketches is I usually start with a sphere. Now, normally I do this on the Cintiq, so if it looks a little wonky at different times, that's probably why. And I like to work fast, or at least fast in my opinion, which could be super slow for you guys. Because I'm sure there's some professionals, or if you watch some live streams of when people do more line art oriented stuff, they can work a lot faster than I can. Okay, so what I like to do is just literally using sketchy almost marks. They're like indication lines of like where the different features go, what kind of expression I'm going for. And I like to overemphasize it. So maybe it should have just like slight, or you know what, I don't want to make her smiling. She'll have like a pout. And like those puppy dog eyes looking up. So as long as you kind of have an emotion or a reaction or something going into doing a facial expression like this, you can exaggerate it at first because then I like to then tone it down as we go through more of the motions of coloring it or of giving the shapes and really refining the different facial features. So I know our hair kind of has this short, choppy look. And then you see it a lot in like comics, but usually there will be like a few strands of hair that are very unique to that specific character. So in this case, it's this little tuft up here. And then when I get to it, I'll be putting the 2 white marks that she has under her eye. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to start, it's going to look really ugly, but I'm starting to shape out all the different underlying shapes so that when I get into the refining stage, I can refine that. Because I think too many artists try to make it look perfect from the get-go. And you just got to know you don't have to. You can definitely have it look messy and sloppy from the start and then clean it up later on. But it's harder to refine things later on. It's easier to give it the shapes and the overall look that you're going for when you're starting off. So that's why this usually makes me really uncomfortable streaming my sketchy stuff because from the get-go it always looks super bad in my opinion. But then I always just got to remind myself, like, you'll clean it up, you won't leave it looking like this later on. So I'm looking at the chin area, I'm seeing the mouth, trying to give the cheek some fullness, and then flip it, see what it looks like from the other side. And there. And I know you're like, well, what are you talking about, Tim? What did you do? So now I'm going to make a duplicate of this layer. I'm going to turn the opacity down. Or no, I'm going to keep this opacity. I'm going to work with it. But I will still make a copy of that layer so that we can see the progress. So I'll move this one to the side. So now what I like to do, especially with my kind of line art sketches, is I like to really separate the hair from the skin just purely through contrast. So I'll usually darken the hair and then leave the skin more of that untouched background color.
Are you ready for our first few questions, Tim?
Oh, yeah.
Alright. Alright, by Benedict, what inspired you in creating Crystal?
I guess with my original characters that I have, I've had these characters with me since I've been in like 5th grade. So specifically for Crystal, When I was in fifth grade and I thought I was gonna eventually run a video game company and I was gonna make my own games, I kind of recruited my friends in fifth grade to help start a business with me. And our first game that we wanted to make was called Swordplay. And I think over the years, as I realized I was going to carry it, even though with my friends they all pursued different careers, I was still going to make it. Now I don't plan on making it a game, but I want to make it an illustrated novel. So uh, that's kind of my personal project that I'll always be working on, I think, until I finally finish it. So Crystal was one of my friend's characters that he created, and I've kind of adopted her and taken her under my wing and given her a story. So for her, I think more of like the runaway type character, and um, kind of the one that's more tough, not very girly, sensitive, still kind of tough. So that's what I think of when I think of Crystal. And really quick, so when I'm using my eraser tool, I'm not looking to fully erase all the forms that I laid out, but I'm looking to define and kind of start refining the facial features. So that's what I'm using my eraser for. And then DeAndre, you just shoot questions whenever you want.
Here's a quick one from Alex Langenstein. What's the hotkey to flip the canvas?
You can go to your top menu. So for me, it's under Edit because I'm on a Mac, and then you go to Keyboard Shortcuts, and then you find it in there. But for me, I have it set as Command Q, just because I like to keep my left hand kind of on the left side of the keyboard, and I find it much easier.
Alright, and next we have by Jamila Carlson. I usually use a reference photo to find the position of the nose, eyes, and so on, and when I got that right, I completely break free from the photo. Do you think that is cheating or just a good use of reference photos?
I think that's a fantastic use of reference photos.
When do you think it becomes cheating?
I think it becomes cheating if you literally bring it in Photoshop and you just paint right over it. Now, that's not to say that there aren't professionals that do that. I think a lot of, even one of my friends is taking a class by Anthony Jones, and he talks a lot of photo mashing, and I think it can be a good reference. I don't think you learn as much from it because you're literally taking the proportions and sometimes the color and the anatomy from the thing you're drawing over. But I do think it gives you a quick way to create a concept piece, but I don't find it to be a very useful learning tool.
By Lily Rivera, I have a question for both of you. Do you recommend Photoshop more to do line art or to do coloring?
I'll let you answer that first.
Me? I would say coloring. I almost never try to do line art in Photoshop. I just find it too strange and difficult. If I want to do line art, I don't know. Whenever I'm digitally painting, I always kind of just go for color right away, and then if I want line work, I use a pencil and a piece of paper.
I agree. I think something like even Paint Tool Sai has a much better line quality or mischief. I think for me, Photoshop is just the best in terms of shading, but in terms of line art, I still don't think it's one of the greatest.
By Miss Video Game, she asks, I'm planning to enter Design University. How important do you think it is art school for getting yourself out there and establishing a strong portfolio? Is it best to go to art school or go rogue?
That's tough because I definitely think you can teach yourself and become a great artist by yourself. But I do think a lot of the networking that I created while I was at art school was very useful, and I still talk to many of them almost daily. So I think just from a networking purpose, I would say it is worth it, but in terms of actually learning digital art, I don't think art school is the right choice. But that's not to say, I mean, I don't think networking costs $80,000, but I will say it did help me make those connections, and I am thankful for those. But it is tough if you go rogue and you try to do it on your own, because then you really got to get noticed, and you got to take the right steps to do it. And I know I see it a lot on DeviantArt, and like the people that started small and this got continually bigger. Usually fan art helps a little bit, and then literally just having top-notch quality pieces. Gosh, my girl looks so pissed at me, and I don't know why.
I think it's the mouth.
Oh. Okay, so I'm going to make one more copy of this, move it to the side, just so we can see the progression. And then I will kind of finish up the details on this one. So I hope you guys have been able to at least see why it is a little easier without transfer on to really nail down your shapes and see the character a little more. Man, there's this fly that is on my monitor, and it is bugging the heck out of me right now. And I don't want to slap it in the middle of the stream.
Our next question is, what is the difference between dark and light, like blonde, for example, hair, when working like you do now? Are there differences in the way you handle them?
Yes. Let me find an example really quick for you. Because I even like consciously thought about, okay, if I do blonde hair, how am I going to go about doing this? So let me find one of my old pictures. Alright, so pretty much I'm just showing you guys the method that I had used these on, and I did this sometime last year. I did it with a Cintiq, so I think I was a little more comfortable. Like with this, there are a few blonde characters, but I decided to go with the dark contrast because I still like that. Let's say like this character right here, if I wanted to do blonde hair, I could just paint right over it and then keep some of the outlines, and it would still give the impression that he's blonde hair. But I think, in my opinion, either way works. I almost like doing this way better, where you do color over it, give it the impression of blonde hair. Like then it's really obvious he has light colored hair compared to like someone that has dark colored hair. And then the real challenge of all this is making the characters look consistent with each other. Like on this page, so these are all the characters from my novel. I would really love it if like people could look at this and be like, okay, this one's Crystal and this one's Crystal. And it's just using those subtle character hints that should give you the impression that this character, or this female character, is specifically Crystal. And it's those two white lines under her eye, her hair length, of course, and like the kind of style it's in, and the little tuft that's in the back of the head. So this, I would say, goes more toward like comic book artists or ones that have to repeat the same character over and over. Like you definitely want to create something that's recognizable and then repeat it. So with Crystal, even though she's looking really pissed right now, I'm going to try to pretty her up just a tad. I still want it to give the impression that this is Crystal. So I'm going to zoom in because it's really bothering me how angry she looks. Now this is a good little lesson on how to soften a character up. So when eyes are so overshadowed like that, it definitely gives the impression of like a maniacal, a malicious look, like they're scheming something or planning something. So if you open them up, I think that alone will help your character look not quite so scheming, I guess. Let me then, and then I mean you definitely want to go back in then and not make it look like they're just super surprised all the time with these giant eyes. But all right, sorry. Next question.
All right. By S. Carrillo, or Carrillo, I'm not sure. I want to avoid using Illustrator for getting clean inked lines. Any advice on getting smoother, sharper outlines in Photoshop? I have a lot of trouble getting nice line art.
I think you go down the same path that I am right now, where I don't like using Photoshop for my line art, and I think it's almost better to use a different program. And then if you still want to shade in Photoshop, you can save the image out and then bring it into Photoshop. But I would say try Paint Tool SI or Mischief, because they even have a line smoothing option, and that's what will help you significantly. Whereas trying to create smooth lines in Photoshop is just a little tougher, in my opinion.
Alright, by Phil Halsey. Hi Tim, just got my new tablet. How would you go about the transition from traditional to digital art? My line work has taken a serious hit. Thanks.
Oof, it does take a little bit. Like if you've never used a tablet before, I always say there's like a 3-month hump that you have to get over. And it's just being comfortable with using a tablet and then how you see what you're working on. Because a lot of it is just training that hand-eye coordination, because you're no longer looking at where your hand's drawing, you're looking at the screen the entire time. And you're looking at like little outline of your brush. And I think that transition does take time, and it doesn't happen overnight. So just know, if you don't even get it in the first month, just know, like, it's okay. I really do think there's like a 3-month hump where that's how long it takes for you to get completely comfortable with your hand-eye coordination.
By 3D Escape, you said you want to have a look into Krita. Have you already had one? Have you already looked into it? What are your impressions?
Wait, say the first part?
You said you wanted to have a look into Krita.org, the program.
Oh, Krita, the software, yes.
Yeah.
I have not. I have not looked into Krita yet. I think just because of time, it's really crazy right now, especially with the workshop and like trying to find. So we already have more artists lined up for you guys, which is kind of exciting, or just for Concept Cookie in general. But like, I don't have time to do first impressions on Krita right now. Probably once the workshop's over, I'll be able to. But when the workshop's over, it's also the month of October, and I want to have a lot of fun with that month and do some cool guest live streams with some of the people that have done tutorials for us, and have our awesome Halloween contest again. And actually, if you guys have any ideas for the Halloween contest, I'm starting to kind of think about what it will be and just kind of like plan ahead. But I think I want to do something like Bride of Frankenstein, or something that can really showcase some cool like stitching and skin rendering. And I really, because the whole purpose of the contest is still test yourself with maybe something you haven't done or you're not familiar with as much. So I think that's kind of what I'm thinking right now. Yeah, let's just give her a new mouth. She is way too angry.
From Lamont Robinson. So in my school, we have to find an internship, but unfortunately in Philadelphia, there aren't many studios in the area. So are there any other internships an artist can take?
Oof, that's tough because they open up randomly. Like I know even Riot Games opened up their internships for next summer, but I don't even think one of those are art related. So sometimes it's timing. But as of now, like I don't know what jobs are available because I'm not up to date on that. Like I don't check that every day as much as I used to. But I know there's plenty of sites that are out there that do kind of look for jobs for you. I really liked CG Hub had a nice thing for freelancers, especially. But even right now, there's what's that site called, Deandra, of the one with the jobs listings?
Concept art jobs, I think.
Yeah, and that one usually updates pretty frequently, I would say, for new job opportunities.
Our next question is from Savage Shoe. Hi, I'm doing a video game dev course in college, the UK version of college, so it's different. And we are doing a concept art unit design for beginners, but I feel underworked for my skill level. Would you ask for harder work or stick to what you're given?
I would ask for harder work. Sometimes you'll surprise yourself with like the teacher that may be willing to work with you more on an individual level. Because even while I was in school, you could definitely tell the ones that needed help, I would say, received the teacher's attention more so than the actual ones that kind of knew what they were doing and wanted to move and progress. So if you just make it known to your teacher, I do think they'll take the extra time to work with you on making it harder so that you don't want to become comfortable. Because if you become comfortable, then I don't think you're learning as much. So I think that's a great idea for you to do.
By Heats, I'm kind of new to Photoshop and I'm having difficulties making clean edges. Even when using lasso tool, it always ends up looking shaky and messy. Is it just a matter of practice or am I missing something?
It's a matter of practice and then just becoming more comfortable with your hand-eye coordination. But if you really feel like you are just not getting it even over an extended period of time, I do promise that if you switch over and try like Paint Tool Sai or Mischief and just try the line smoothing tool, it creates a world of difference. Because even I can say I'm not comfortable with doing line work in Photoshop. Like this is probably as comfortable as I want to get, where it's not even like a crisp, solid line art. It's more of like blocking out shapes. But I like doing this. But in terms of like the line quality, it's still kind of shaky and could be better. So I would definitely recommend trying out a different software.
And from Benedict again, one question to the eyes. About the eyes. How do pupils behave when the object they are looking at gets nearer? Do they both look in the same direction or do they have different looking ways? How can you check that your pupils look into the right direction?
Um, I guess if the object becomes closer to your face, your eyes do tilt inward toward the object a little bit, and it almost looks a tad cross-eyed if it gets really close to the character's face. But for the most part, an object won't be like within 3 feet of the character's face, so you don't have to tilt them inward that much. But I do recommend having them both look at the object and have the irises reflect that. So you don't want them, because I think that's where sometimes they look a little wonky or lazy-eyed, if you don't literally move both of the pupils and irises toward what the direction that they're looking at. Let's see. Let's do another one here. I'm going to do... Let's do Miko.
A comment from Buweria Maned Black Wolf. They said, huh, you look different. Nice haircut.
Thank you.
And in the beginning of the stream, you got a few more of those as well.
Oh, of what?
Just compliments on your hair.
Oh, I tell people that I auditioned for a One Direction knockoff band. That's why my hair is all like this right now. Alright, so now I'm going to be treating a male profile a little differently. Now, if you know the way I work, I do tend to keep things more soft and I would say more feminine looking. So even with a character like this, I'm going to have some soft features, but then I'm going to crisp them out like with the edging on the stubble on the beard or even the area under the eye. And that's what will still give it that masculine appeal to it. Because you don't want to make your characters look too feminine unless if you're specifically going for like something that's very Final Fantasy-ish, where they do have very feminine traits to them. For this character, it's kind of more on the masculine side. So like I did before, I'm going to start with my sphere. Actually, I'm going to work with a smaller brush here. And then from here, I like to work with my jawline. So let's see, what do I want him doing? Maybe let's have him looking. I guess this would be a good test. Have him in the same position as Crystal. Now, when I do the jawline for men, and not so often for boys, for the younger the age, I'll usually keep it more of a curved jawline. But when I'm doing more of that older guy, I'll do more of like a squared off jawline to start it off. Push down the neck. The necks I tend to make a little thicker as well. And these little subtle hints will help distinguish the character's gender identity. Usually crop off where the forehead is. And then, like I said, I like to keep it really fast, or at least I try to keep it fast. I know there's moments where I'll slow down, but then I always just keep trying to remind myself, nope, keep moving. And if you need to, you can grab your selection tool. Like I think the jaw needs to be lower just because of the tilt of the head. I feel like there would be more to it. So feel free to edit it as you go. Don't feel like you're obligated to stick with your initial sketch. I think that's the worst thing you can do.
All right, your next question is from Vilesen. Hi Tim, I've been spending the past week trying to fully understand my limitations before the workshop. My issue with seeing fine detail in human form, I noticed I can see comparable detail with animals very easily. Any idea what could be hindering this?
It could just be what you were interested in, and like since I always love drawing people, I think I've been able to over the years see the subtlety and the differences, where that just takes time and practice, and then really, really analyzing and observing your reference. And that's definitely something I want to talk with everyone that signed up for the workshop, and how I really want to teach you guys how to train your eye to see things differently and see them as an artist rather than just viewing them for their surface value. I'm going to draw this guy's jacket. He's got that really high side on one side. All right, sorry, next question.
Let's see. The next few are just comments.
Okay.
Right, by Louise Hampson. People per Hour is a good site for short-term work experience. I've used it a few times, and I made a bit of money from it too. So there's one recommendation. And from 30 Escape, they suggested Krita as a program for line art.
Oh, do they also have a line smoothing tool, I assume?
Yes. And from Nicole C. Shoke. Hi, this is my first time joining your live stream. I've been watching past streams and just learned of Krita. I tested all the cool brushes. Wow, it's a fun program. And then she linked one of her paintings that she used with Krita, I assume.
Okay. Well, give me
We
like
can
a
check
minute.
that out.
I'm spending way too much time on this initial sketch. I think you really should be able to catch yourself when you're doing that. Sometimes I get lost where I'm thinking about something, or I'm not really paying attention to what I'm working on as much. And you got to break that and be like, no, focus on what you're doing and get back to it. Don't try not to slow down too much, especially during the early stages. Let me zoom in a bit because I can't even see this clearly. There we go. So with a character like this, I think the face still reads too young. So then I can do some things that I know will help age him a little bit. And it's even with things that might seem almost a bit ridiculous, such as like making the eyebrows thicker. Can I go ahead and do that? And usually having more under baggage under the eyelids themselves will also tend to age the character. And I know it sounds ridiculous, but these little cheek lines over here will also give the character some age. So just like any subtle stuff like that that you can add to your character if you really want to age it will help. And having such a dark lid on the top definitely gives it that mysterious look to the character. So I want to soften it just a tad so he doesn't look like a villainous type character. I do want to make him still look relatable and one of the good guys. So it's funny how contrast alone can really showcase your character and their features. Where oftentimes we think it's a lot of like shading and stuff, and I even try to tell myself to believe that because of how much I enjoy working with color and shading and how much I think that's important. But really, for just defining a character, just the values and their features can define it. Oops, I don't like how I did that nose. Something that else that you'll kind of notice is I usually do most of my features kind of in the same way. And that's where you'll develop your own kind of personal style. Where usually all my noses and mouths and eyes, even though they might be just slightly different from each other, they still are drawn kind of in the same manner. That's what kind of distinguishes them as your character. Oh, now my computer's really lagging. Come on, buddy. There we go.
Alright, question from Benedict. I saved the money for the workshop, but I was too slow for getting into it. What would you say is now more important concerning the saved up money? Keep it for when the workshop comes again, or spend it on books and equipment for further improvement in learning?
I would say it kind of depends on what you feel would be the best next step. Because like if you really feel like you need some personal one-on-one guidance, then I would say definitely use it for the workshop. But if you feel like you're just on a learning path right now and you need to kind of continue with it, then do what's necessary to keep you on that path. And if that's buying art books, buying a new tablet, or whatever it is, then that's the road I would recommend. But it definitely is very much what stage are you at right now. Usually just little subtle touches of stubble will give the impression of kind of that unshaven look without it looking like a beard.
from Louise Hampson again. Hey Tim and Dee, want to come to an affordable art exhibition on Tuesday in Aberystwyth?
In where?
Abers. I don't even know how to say that.
Maybe if we weren't living in the Midwest in America. Unless if that's somewhere close, but I'm pretty sure that's not even in the country. Although I also have a convention this weekend, so I will be in Milwaukee, uh, Wisconsin, on Sunday at MightyCon. So now here's another thing I can talk about is when you have eyes half open like this, you're definitely indicating a few things. And one might just be that they give the impression that they look high. And that's not something I want to create for this character. So I do want to show more of that, the top part of the iris. But it could also just mean that they are tired or they're lazy. But for the most part, I always get the impression that it looks like they are just high. You gotta be careful with your characters when you're placing even something that might go unnoticed like that. They'll still read for some of your other people looking at it as something you may not want it to.
Louise comments that it's in Wales.
Yeah, just a little bit of a trip.
And from Heats, how do you go about practicing anatomy? Do you copy from books or is from real life better?
Either one's fine. I do think a life drawing class would be the most beneficial for you if you really want to learn anatomy. I think that's where I learned personally the most about anatomy. But that's not to say I still didn't open like anatomy books and like draw bone structures and the different muscles that wrap around the leg. So I definitely think you can learn from either. It's just how much time and effort you put into it and actually doing it. That's what matters.
I think it's possible to learn from books, but I would always recommend learning from life over learning from a book because it's just a different experience and you see people more as like forms and in 3D than just like, oh, I'm copying a flat picture. So it just helps, I think. There's just psychologically, I feel like you learn more. There's less holding you back from learning from real life.
Okay, now we're going to take this one to the third step. I'm kind of doing all the cleanup.
And you can easily move around, the model to get a different pose or perspective. Yeah. Would you ever visit a con abroad if they would pay you the trip?
Absolutely. To whoever asked that, which con were they thinking?
It was from Benedict Geierhofer. See if he replies.
Because actually, that's one of the reasons I wanted to start doing conventions, is so I could start traveling the world a bit. And yeah, I just find them really fun and enjoyable, especially meeting people one-on-one. It's just a different experience entirely than doing it online. Give them some of those eyebrow wrinkles in the center. And even though if you have a character that has stubble on the face, I think it's also important that you bring some of it down into the neck as well. If you look just from life in general, it doesn't just stop at like the jawline. It definitely continues downward. Because having those touches, once again, it's those details that people pay attention to, and that's what will really separate your work from another artist, is those details that people pick up on. So even though sometimes you might feel like you're wasting time, just know you're not, because someone will appreciate the little time you spent on the different areas.
Alright, Benedict answered, I'm from Austria, but it was asked in general.
Oh yeah, I for anyone that is watching from Australia, I'm hoping to go to, I believe it's AVCon next July. I have a friend in Australia that I want to meet, and I think that kind of gives me a good excuse to fly out there. So yeah, I'm more than willing and actually already kind of planning to do it.
From Uluriel, would you ever do a stream or tutorial on gestures and figure drawing?
Yeah.
And from Pyro Healthier, what would you use these types of sketches for? As a base for color, or would these be more as just quick character references, or something else?
These are more of a study, but I do like painting over them. So I did a test run where some of the pages in my book, I needed like just quick sketches like this where I would lay out the scene or whatever. And then from there I would paint right over them. So for these, yes, I would use these as something I can paint over. Oh, and I don't know if any of you guys play League of Legends at all, but their contest ends today, and I'll show you guys what my final result looked like. I was working on that pretty late last night. And stuff like that, I always recommend any artist, especially if you're a new one, to do. It's like good practice, possibly good exposure, and you could possibly win something. I just feel like it's such an all-around win that just giving the excuse, oh, there's so many good people that enter. Well, that's because they've practiced, they put in the time over and over again, and you will be one of those people if you put in the time and effort yourself.
From Patricio, I don't even know, Andres. This is not related to the video, but for some reason I struggle when it comes to drawing hips. Do you have some tips for that?
Drawing hips?
Mm-hmm.
Definitely depends on if it's male or female. You look at references of male and female hips, and you'll see that they're very different. And if you really look at them, like a male hip, they'll usually be more squared off, but they have more angles to them. Actually, this, I don't even know if you guys can tell what I'm drawing right now. Hold on. So like this was the torso, this was the nipple. Like usually they have like this little indentation here. Whereas if I was doing a female, get rid of this, the hip line is generally higher. And I mean, it depends on their body shape and everything as well. But then they usually have this very, very subtle dip right there. But then the main dip that most people recognize is the one that separates kind of the torso in the lower region of the body. But don't forget this little subtle one right here too. I think that one's a big one that often goes overlooked. So for just specifically for you, start looking at references and really, really, really analyze what you're looking at and how the body and anatomical forms work together. So I'm really trying to capture that same rotation that Crystal had with her body language, which I don't think was captured here. But as you can see, it's really easy to just paint right over it. And that's the great part about having transfer turned off is if you make a mistake or if you feel you want to change something, you can do it really easily and you won't feel like you are erasing or taking out a whole bunch of work that you put into it. There's the ear. Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about the way it's looking. But then, as always, I usually try to end it off with, I'll usually liquefy it just a tad, push and pull some proportions, flip it, see what it looks like from the other way. Like this one, I think the hair flip is a bit too beaverish, so I'm going to push it back in, pull back the hair just a tad. There we go. And for Crystal, I feel like I missed the mark on keeping the same rotation of the head, where hers has like a more tilted pout look. But it's okay. I mean, these I treat as practices, and then I'll know for the next one I need to keep the neck more in line, especially in the facial region. Let's see what that looks like. And the true test is if they are put next to each other, like, do they feel like they fit in terms of like size references? And not that you guys would know, but these two characters are kind of like a couple character, so you definitely want to make sure that they fit each other. So she would be like about that tall. It looks about right in terms of size reference. So I'm pretty pleased with how this turned out, and for once I think we are going to make the hour stream time, even though we started a little late. So before I cut this one off, if you guys have any other questions, feel free to ask them right now, and then we will go ahead and answer them. But in the meantime, let me go ahead and show you the final result of the league face-off contest, because I was pretty proud of how it turned out, and I just love Ziggs and Teemo, if you guys are familiar with that. So here they are. And I think I really like doing lighting and color and kind of rendering things almost to the point where it's over-rendered. But I think that's why this piece was a lot of fun for me. If this is something that interests you, if you really like kind of color diarrhea everywhere just based on lighting, really have fun with it, but really make sure that any light source that you add in, you have to integrate it and incorporate it into the entire scene. And that's why this can take usually a long time. Because then even things like this pink gem thing down here, then you got to make sure that it's reflected in the grass that's around it, in the helmet. Anything that's shiny would reflect it. So like even in the bomb, like right there, you just got to be very kind of conscious of lighting and how you're adding it. So that was that, and I think we're done. Is there any other questions, or are we good?
Few. Okay. From David Inweir, how do you liquefy without popping up the filter window?
So you guys can't see my screen, you can only see the canvas, so that's why it only shows that. but it still comes up, and I still have to edit it.
Okay. And from Silverbell Bell, hello, I usually draw animals, so humans are pretty new to me. Do both of you have any recommendations on any books to start practicing more humans? Thanks, and sorry if this has already been answered. I just joined the live stream, and it's my first time.
That's fine. I would say for me, I really like a book by Giovanni's. Oh shoot, I'd have to look behind me. Hold on. Where is it? Oh, there we go. I'm gonna switch so I can actually just show you the book. So this is it. It's called Drawing Human Anatomy, and this is who you need to look for. So it's Giovanni Savardi. And the reason I like this book, and I mention it all the time, but I guess I can actually show you now that I'm just on camera. So the way that he crosshatches, I don't know how clear this is coming in, but he crosshatches, and it's very detailed, but more specifically, the models that he chooses are not like really built up bodybuilders. And I think having more of that realistic tone and weighting to it is just better for practice, because I think drawing just superhero type proportions all the time isn't really giving you a realistic look at human anatomy. Like, I love this. I love the fact that he draws the veins on the lower arm. Let me see if I can tilt this so you can see this better. So stuff like this I find to be just awesome practice if you guys want to almost just make a section in your sketchbook where you just kind of duplicate and draw what you see in the book. So this is a great one. There's another one called Drawing Human Anatomy that I know a lot of people recommend. Oh yeah, stuff like this. See those, just those subtle hints of the calf muscle underneath the anatomy? Stuff like that, I think, is so much more important than drawing like super muscular anatomy structures. So yeah, sorry, this book, Drawing Human Anatomy. And there might be a few others. If you're more serious about learning art, I could grab Color and Light. I think everyone kind of knows this in the art community. It's by James Gurney. I would order that one. That one's such an important just book to have. Maybe I'll grab it really quick from our library over here. This one. So it's called Color and Light, but then a guide for the realistic painter. And originally, intention was for traditional artists that do painting and with like oils and watercolors and acrylics. But I found that digital artists, I think, use this even more. So if you're serious, get this book. And we usually have it up for grabs whenever we do a contest. So get the book. Is there any other questions, or are we good?
For Benedict, I gave a comment. I wrote a comment on the Timo piece on your Facebook page. Did it help, or was it of no help? Did you even see it? Just out of curiosity.
Oh, I did. Yeah, the really, really long one. Yes. And I fully agree with how you thought about the composition and making sure it fit well. And I do appreciate, I actually really do appreciate when I get critiques, because I think you can only hear, oh, that looks great, or like, awesome job, enough to the point where it's like, well, that's good, but what can I improve on? What can I get better on? Because I don't want to just settle at the skill level I'm at. And even though sometimes if you post it on a social media site like Facebook, I mean, you have to kind of expect that that's what you're going to get. But then when you post it on more serious sites like Draw Crowd, well, I'm actually hoping Draw Crowd gets a little more serious, or even DeviantArt has the critique feature. But I would say for the most part, social media really doesn't give you any critiques that are constructive. So yeah, I do appreciate that, and for you commenting on that. So thank you.
And then last question by Cody Heyer. Have any recommendations on amazing artists that aren't well known to check out?
Ooh, wow, that's a loaded question to end off with. Oh, and it's perfect timing. Our neighbor is about to cut the grass. I would say recently, check out like Zeronis. His name's Paul Kwan. He works at Riot. I think he's a really good just initial impression for an influence. Rajner the Fifth. She's fantastic. If you're more into just traditional sketching stuff, Alan Williams has been like a hero of mine for the past 6 months. oh man, I'm trying to like list out them all in my head. Because then if you really want to get into like concept design, you could definitely look at like anything Tetsuya Nomura has done. Or if you want to look into more animation stuff, Ryan Lang, I think, is a fantastic digital artist. There's so many, and I almost want to just link you to the exercise that I did, where I literally listed out every artist that has influenced me. Because even ones like that are Tumblr famous, like Feverworm or Purple Kekleon, I think their use of color is brilliant. So I think you can take pieces of all these different artists and then kind of Frankenstein it into your own unique style. So yeah, those were just listing a few, but there's so many that I could have gone off with. So are we good?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you guys once again for coming to this Wednesday live stream. We do these every single week at 2 p.m. Central Time, and even with the workshop that's starting next week, I still hope to continue doing these, and they probably will be more closer to the hour range just because I'll be swamped with workshop stuff, but just know I want to keep doing these, and you can expect and look forward to them every single week. And I usually post what we're going to be working on about an hour or two before on our social media sites, such as Twitter, DeviantArt, Facebook, Tumblr. And yeah, I'm here to answer your questions and help out in any way I can. So if you have even any suggestions for what you would like to see during a live stream, feel free to put it on the comments somewhere. I'll see it. I check all the social media sites. It's kind of part of my job, so don't feel like you're being ignored if it takes a couple days. It's just because of how much I have to do right now that sometimes it takes a little bit for me to get back. So as always, thanks again for coming to this, and hopefully we'll see you next week. Say bye, Dee.
Goodbye.